Can you say friends, talking, nerdy? Close enough.
If your friends are nerdy and you are nerdy too, I want to talk to you. Friends Talking Nerdy.
Welcome to Friends Talking Nerdy. This is Tim the Nerd, and seated next to me we have the Teal Delight, Professor Aubrey. And this week we are going to be honoring a musical icon who, as we record this today, the news came out that he passed away. Brian Wilson, the musical creative output person for the Beach Boys. As we record this, we are a couple of days away from finding out that we also lost Sly Stone from Sly and the Family Stone as well.
Yeah.
We do want to mention that. But the reason I think we're not going to be having a special episode for Sly Stone is just simply because I'm not that familiar with his music. I think back to the time that I wrote for Latino Review Media, and at first I was all in, and I was like, great, we're going to have a lot of fun doing this. But then I was at a point to where I was earning money, but I was writing about like pop culture stuff that I didn't know anything about and was expected to have an opinion, and I just didn't care, and the passion wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, I think if we did take the time to talk about someone that you or I were not that familiar with whatsoever, I think it would have a disingenuous air. So I would still recommend popping on some Sly and the Family Stone. They did make some great music, but in terms of a tribute, I don't think we're the right people to do that.
Agreed.
Yes. Well put. Well put. Very eloquent. Very verbose. Yes. But Brian Wilson, different story altogether. I mean, and I will even put it out there that I don't even consider myself the biggest Beach Boys fan in the world.
Me either.
But Brian Wilson is definitely a creative force that inspired a lot of the bands and musicians that I do have more love for. You know, like the top of the list, the Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Wilson was inspired by Rubber Soul to come out and give us the musical landmark that is called Pet Sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And when Paul McCartney first heard Pet Sounds, he was like, hold my beer. And the Beatles ended up making Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Nice.
And apparently that when Brian Wilson heard that, he went into a deep depression.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it sucks that competition did that. I believe, you know, the older they got, I think Brian Wilson was able to say great things about that album because, you know, it's a great album, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, if anything, like, I think what we have as music fans today, whether you are even aware of Brian Wilson or not, to thank him for is the fact that he took the studio where music is recorded, and instead of it just being a tool, he was one of the first in popular music to make it an instrument.
Hmm.
You know, utilizing anything and everything that he had available to him, even if it was outside the norms of the type of music he was, trying to play.
Like the dog barking.
The dog barking or theremin use. We're going to have some trivia on the songs that we are going to be talking about here, and we'll definitely be bringing up the theremin here. But he just did so many things, worked lots of hours, and we've talked about this multiple times in the show too. He did lots of work with the Los Angeles-based session musician group, the Wrecking Crew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and apparently Glenn Campbell at one point was a member of the Wrecking Crew for a short period at the beginning of his career.
Interesting. I had no idea.
Yep.
That's interesting.
Mr. Rhinestone Cowboy himself.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Yeah. That's right. I know one reference. But what would you say is one of your first memories of Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys? And obviously you understand when I ask that. I'm not saying give me the exact time and date, because
I'll tell you what it was, and you'll be frankly potentially disgusted with me.
David Lee Roth.
Exactly. So I heard California Girls for the first time by David Lee Roth. I also the song Just a Gigolo turned out to be like a classic of some sort.
A cover of an old Louis Prima song, yeah.
Yeah. But they didn't tell anybody that.
MTV was notorious with that back in the day. I mean, another example that we brought up on the show before, the Black Crowes and Hard to Handle.
Oh, uh-huh. And that was whose?
Originally performed by Otis Redding.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's intense.
Yeah. But interesting there, like, I do remember when that song was big at the time, and I enjoyed it, let's be honest. I think, especially the video, I believe David Lee Roth directed the video himself.
Really?
Yeah, and it shows. It shows, but it has that quirky, almost campy feel.
Mm-hmm.
Campy via the Sunset Strip feel. And not like campy like B-52's music video.
Right.
You know, but
anything could be camp.
Anything, yeah. I mean, if pro wrestling is not camp, what is?
Yeah, I mean, it's to me, camp is just very seriously whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the degree of a feeling rather than a number of feelings.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. Well, me, when it comes to Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys music, as far as the music, it was on occasion as a kid. You know, it was played on the oldies channel, and I didn't necessarily like the oldies channel because a lot of it was that Phil Spector sound nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Back, at least for the classical, the oldie station we had back in Grand Rapids. As far as Brian Wilson himself, I guess I would have to thank Wilson Phillips for kind of introducing me to that fact, because as soon as they first hit it big, that's when they came forward with their story about being upset about their father being involved with charlatan's psychiatrist who was taking advantage of him physically, emotionally, and financially.
Mm-hmm. If you followed that, I didn't. I just remember that I didn't know who Brian Wilson was when everybody was like, "Oh, they're Brian Wilson's daughters."
Yeah, I didn't get it myself, because I think if you think about it too, like especially in the 80s, even though they had the hit Kokomo, to me the Beach Boys always seemed like a nostalgia act. And there's nothing wrong with nostalgia acts if you
It's like Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons.
or seeing Mickey Dolenz sing the Monkey song. Let's be honest here. Like, him continuing to tour with the Monkees is a nostalgia act, but would I pay to see it? Damn right I would.
Really?
There's nothing wrong with a nostalgia act, as long as they don't have the opinion.
But as a young person, when you don't have that nostalgia,
that's totally.
It doesn't seem warranted. You know what I mean? It's sort of like they're not that good. Because the nostalgia acts keep going, and they're even more special the longer it's been since they were popular.
Yeah, I mean, and then
the tastes come around again, and people discover Pet Sounds as opposed to all the surfing records.
Well, that's the thing too. Like at that age when I was first familiar, I didn't understand his place in music history. I didn't understand the importance of Pet Sounds, even though Good Vibrations was not on that album. It was recorded during that same period as the rest of the songs that ended up on Pet Sounds. You know, it's like I liked that song, but I didn't understand the importance. I didn't understand how that, influenced so many others that, I did like, and I think that's part of becoming a student of music, a phrase I keep saying, but I think anybody can be that. You don't have to have a physical plaque on the wall stating you're a student of music or something like that. But to me, it's like wanting to know more about the creative process makes you enjoy it that much better, and can also give you respect for music that normally you wouldn't necessarily want to check out, right? It's like you can come to respect it. You're not going to, like me with the Dolly Parton rock album,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you have a great respect for Dolly Parton, even if you don't like everything she does.
Exactly. what we do in times like this, when we do have a musical legend pass away, is that we come up with a playlist to be able to share to the world of songs that we both enjoy from Brian Wilson. In this case, they're going to be Beach Boys songs. So obviously other people were involved, but these are songs that Brian Wilson himself helped shape to become what they are today.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, his influence on the music industry affects everybody playing music today, whether they were even aware of him or not. So I think it is important for, fans of music as a whole to take time to honor those people. And the best way to do that, pop on their music.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you go to the show description, you will be able to get the playlist on YouTube, YouTube Music, or regular YouTube as well. You don't have to have a YouTube Music subscription to check out the song choices that we made. But let's start talking about some music.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, the first track we picked here from 1966, I think it is absolutely one of their best, Good Vibrations.
Yes, I think Good Vibrations is the song that made me realize that the Beach Boys were more than met the eye.
Yeah, they weren't the ones doing the Surfing USA or something like that. And that's not to say Surfing USA was bad, but it's like listening to I Am the Walrus and then looking back on Love Me Do.
It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's, that happens to all artists, right? Because you start somewhere and you end up somewhere else.
Not Kiss, but, are they even artists?
Yeah.
Okay. That's not reluctantly. Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, but don't put them in the same category of anybody I like. Well, I got a couple bits of trivia here about Good Vibrations.
Okay, let's hear it.
All right. Brian Wilson called it a pocket symphony. It took over 90 hours of tape and multiple studios to complete.
Wow.
And again, this is what I meant about him utilizing the studio where the songs were recorded as an actual instrument in and of itself. Because I've have seen a couple of Brian Wilson documentaries and clips, where he talked about knowing that sounds in certain studios were not necessarily up to his pleasure. And it was a situation too, I think, like of any instrument, it may be a song created in one studio, basically a song created in one studio is not always going to sound the same if it's recorded in another studio as well. Just acoustically, there may be different things that he's looking for. So it's not like he just, rented out one building and had one room available to record everything. He went to where the best sound was, for the songs in question. And, the 90 hours of tape. I'm sure they do a lot more today, but again, 90 hours of tape for one song back in the 60s.
Yeah, when that tape was really expensive.
Yeah. And, to be able to get all of the instruments, too, that they had on that, and speaking of instruments, might as well just go into the next bit of trivia here. The song features a theremin-like instrument, an electro-theremin, giving it that eerie, otherworldly sound. Beach Boys were one of the first people to bring the theremin into popular music.
Mm-hmm.
They did it before Led Zeppelin. Any more thoughts on Good Vibrations?
No, I just love it. It's a good song.
Same here. It's easily one of those songs that you can just put on and it always brings a smile to your face.
Yeah.
All right. The next track here, also from Pet Sounds, recorded during the same period. Wouldn't It Be Nice? First bit of trivia here. The iconic intro features a harpsichord and layered percussion, a production innovation for its time. Once again, going back to utilizing the studio as an instrument in and of itself. Just being able to again, the harpsichord too. Like, it would be odd if a harpsichord was in a song that came out today. So having it.
It's interesting. When we were watching some films earlier of Brian Wilson, and I really noticed that he had interesting instruments on stage. Like, he had a marimba, and it was a rock and roll concert. I mean, maybe lots of people do that and I don't notice, but it definitely stuck out to me as being.
Or we watched a clip of him at Live 8, which happened in the mid-2000s, I believe. The second Live 8 that came out, and one of the musicians on stage was playing a xylophone. You know, the only other rock person that I'm aware of, and I'm sure there are more, so educate me, people, if you're listening at home, but Frank Zappa, when he would tour, would routinely have a xylophone player playing along and utilize xylophone in a lot of his songs. So, but
Xylophone's really cool.
yeah, man.
I used to play the xylophone. Did you know that?
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, I was a percussionist for,
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
I don't know, 3 years, maybe 2 years,
Mm.
when I was a preteen. And so, I played the marimba, I played the xylophone, I played the cymbals, the timpani drum, the big kettle drums.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was fun.
Well, all right. Maybe one day you'll pick it up again. You'll grab it and be like, "Why were you not in my life all this time?"
And then I'll end up on stage at Live 8.
No, I'd be Live 9 at that point with Ditcher.
Oh, yeah.
See what I did there?
Mhm.
Anyway. Oh, boy. Next bit of trivia here, though. Due to conservative radio standards, the line about maybe if we think and wish and hope and pray it might come true was seen as suggestive. Some stations initially hesitated to play it.
Wow.
The 60s people. I mean, well, one thing, as I do get older, one thing I do commonly see is how those standards change over time. You know, because like there was back in the day, like people were upset at the Three Stooges, thinking that the Three Stooges would cause their kids to get all injured and all that stuff.
And now you smoke weed, eat pussy all day.
I was gonna get there.
If you don't know, that's a song.
Yeah, there is a song called "Smoke Weed and Eat Pussy," and the laziest damn song I think I've ever heard, but they're obviously making money and I'm not, so, what do I know? But just like, wow.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good song.
Okay, you were dancing to it.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, though. I mean, going back to the example I said of the Three Stooges, the parents at that time were afraid that their kids would pick up bad things from the Three Stooges. As time progressed, those kids became parents themselves and then showed their kids the Three Stooges and were all for it, but then hated something that their kids loved at that time. And then
Mickey Mouse.
Something like, yeah, that Annette Funicello is a hussy. Yeah. But it goes through time, like, and yeah, for me, I guess I'm at that stage when I see a song like "Smoke Weed and Eat Pussy," I'm like, the fuck, But it's okay. It's okay for those tastes to change over time. It's just important, I guess, more than anything, to just kind of recognize that unless it is extremely flagrant and needs to be called out and just stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Like smoke weed and eat pussy. Anyway, how about we go on to the next song here?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Another classic and also recorded for the Pet Sound Sessions, God Only Knows. It's one of the first major pop songs to use the word God in the title, which was controversial at the time.
Mm.
Yes, the Beach Boys, the band that has played at President Trump's inauguration, were one of the first to use the word God in a song during the 60s, where people wanted to kill the Beatles because he said they were bigger than Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, he should die because he said something silly that they didn't know the original context for.
Mm-hmm.
All right, second bit of trivia here. Though it's a Beach Boys song, Carl Wilson sang lead, and it became one of his signature performances. Great for that bit of trivia, but just overall, this also has to be up there. Like, I don't believe in one best song from any band. I think this is up there with their absolute chart-topping, most recognizable, best performances ever.
Now, I agree, but let me ask you this. Was there a commercial that used that song? And was it a commercial for the graham cracker cereal?
I can say definitively, without having to take the time to pause the recording and look it up on the internet, that no, it's not been in a graham cracker commercial. It has.
It's not graham cracker. It is, now we know, because we looked it up.
Yeah.
It's golden grams.
What?
Golden grams.
You're not supposed to say that to the audience. They're supposed to recognize. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, so the golden grams, when we looked that up, now I really want some golden grams.
All right. And listen to the Turtles.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Listen to the Turtles and eat some golden grams.
There you go. It's like 1980s Saturday morning fun.
Yeah, like 12, 14.
Yep.
Golden grams.
Yeah. The song itself, what I guess I like about it too, and this kind of goes with some of the other ones, like Wouldn't It Be Nice? The whole meaning of the song can mean different things based on the age you are listening to, or at least the age you're considering.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're thinking back to what it was like in your 20s, if you're someone, or early teen or late teens or early 20s, when you're my age now, then that's reflecting, but you could still try and put yourself back in those shoes. But like you could. You can imagine this happening to younger people, because this happened to me. I'm sure, something similar happened to you. But it also is a nice nostalgia trip, too, for the older self.
What about those people who never progressed from what they liked in when they were in their 20s? They just listened to the Bare Naked Ladies over and over and over.
They're called Republicans.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's...
Yeah, there are people that will do that, and that's fine. And, we've talked about it before, too. I mean, it's like people do generally, for the most part, that do try to actively listen to music on a regular basis will tend to steer more towards the stuff that they discovered during that high school age, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which doesn't mean that they haven't found, new things along the way. But, not everybody also... There are such things as casual music fans out there, right? That, do just want to put on a Whitney Houston album if they're vacuuming the house and call it good.
Or who don't put anything on. Ever.
That too. I don't want to know those people, but yeah. I'm kidding. I love you all.
I mean, they may watch TV or whatever, but like while they're vacuuming or while they're hanging around, they're not necessarily making sure that there's music playing.
Music helps me at work. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
All right. Speaking of that, how about we go on to the next track we chose for our playlist? I love this. I love this song. This is, again, recorded for the Pet Sounds sessions. I believe it was on Pet Sounds. And it is a traditional Bahamian song, a folk song. Al Jardine suggested it for the Pet Sounds album. So, not one that, Brian Wilson put pen to paper on.
And you can really tell.
As far as the lyrics, yeah. But going to the second bit of trivia here, Brian Wilson changed its structure and harmony to match the sonic complexity of Pet Sounds, making it feel like a Beach Boys original.
But see, I don't think so.
Did you hear the original folk song? Have you heard the original Sloop John B. that was not from the Beach Boys?
No.
So how can you say that?
What do you mean, how can I say that?
Yeah.
I could tell that it wasn't a Beach Boys song.
Huh.
Because it's like a heavy subject matter. And, the happiness and rainbows really is...
There's one that's going to come up here that does deal with loneliness and introversion and all that stuff. Deals with emotions, but we'll get to it at that particular point.
I don't know. I just have never thought that it fit with the rest of the album.
That's cool. I mean, but me, like I said, I listened to the entirety of Pet Sounds for the first time today.
Oh, wow.
Let's put it that way. So, again, I'm not trying to proclaim myself as the biggest Beach Boys fan here, because I'm not. But Sloop John B is more of one that's popped up in, like, playlists or stuff along the way.
Mm-hmm.
For me. So, in terms of, to kind of put myself in your shoes, I didn't have the context necessarily of the rest of the album to compare that song to.
I got you.
Yeah, so to me, it's it's always felt like, what the Beach Boys would do.
Interesting.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, we should listen to it again. with these things in mind.
I know. Definitely a good song. The next one we're going to talk about here on the playlist is off of one of their first albums called Surfer Girl.
Such a cute song.
Yes, Brian Wilson wrote this when he was just 19 years old. It was his first song ever composed.
No.
It's also the first Beach Boys song that Brian Wilson received sole writing credit for.
Wow.
Yeah. The song itself, is just going to be one that I'm going to put like on my personal playlist and listen to on a regular basis. Not really. Like, it's a little too older for me to really relate to.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that you can't put yourself in the shoes of the characters in that song.
Yeah, and it has sort of a barbershop feel. Like, the Beach Boys really maybe started out as a barbershop-y kind of situation, but it was all psychedelic.
Yeah. Hello, my Coney Island baby.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just sometimes too, though, just plain simplicity can still get those deep emotions out of you. And think about how this song affected young people first hearing it all the way back in 1963, watching an American Bandstand. Times do change, but again, this is a classic for a reason. But another one we can talk about, and this is the one that I was referring to, that was talking about something other than happy, chirpy stuff, In My Room. Brian Wilson used the song to reflect his deep introversion and anxiety. It's one of his most personal early works, and the harmonies were recorded in just one take, capturing the raw emotion of the track.
Wow, that's cool. I'm not that familiar with this song.
Yeah, again, is this one I'm going to put on like a regular playlist or anything like that? By no means. But as someone who is a deep introvert and, deals with anxiety issues, it's one I hear. And probably one reason I guess I don't necessarily listen to it regularly is because I don't want to hear me in song form. You know? So it's like I can relate to it. It's like you with like lawyer shows.
Right.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't need to revisit that.
Yeah, you don't need to see yourself in the art that you consume.
Yeah. In my room, you know. Yeah. Yeah, that's me. But next song here, from Pet Sounds as well. I just wasn't made for these times.
Now, is the whole Pet Sounds album on this playlist?
No.
Okay.
Says the woman who chose 4 of her 5 songs on the Cyndi Lauper playlist, all from one album. So yeah, completely.
No, I mean it's clearly their best album. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, not much to say there. But I Just Wasn't Made for These Times features one of the first uses of a theremin in pop music before Good Vibrations. So recorded before Good Vibrations, but that's why it was probably used in Good Vibrations. Brian Wilson heard it on this particular track and, thought, hey, I know what I can do. Yeah, see, bring that over here. That's how he talks, has the bowler hat and everything. Yeah, see? Now, boys, we're going to make some music about surfing. You see? Yeah. Anyway, Brian Wilson later used the song's title for his 1995 autobiographical documentary film. Yeah, but this is, would I put this up there with their absolute classics? No, but it is a nice little deep dive into the psyche of someone who feels like they weren't made for the particular time that they're in. That is something that, you commonly hear from people like, you should have been born in the 60s, like the people that still want to be hippies in 2025. And it's cool if you do. I'm not knocking it, but just some people, whether they show it outwardly or just live a different life, some people just don't really relate to the times that they currently live in.
Totally.
Yeah, which just happens. So I think it's a great audio take on that, and like it through the music, through the lyrics, it you can kind of like get a taste of what that's like too, if you are not that type of person. Any thoughts on the song, or is this one of the lesser known ones?
This is one of the lesser known ones for me.
Okay. All right, so we will go on here. I think you know this one.
I think everybody knows this one.
Surfing USA.
I bet they played this at Trump's inauguration.
Well, Chuck Berry would have liked it. You want to know why?
Because he wrote it.
Yeah, the melody is lifted directly from Chuck Berry's Sweet Little 16. Berry eventually received writing credit after legal action. Not the first white rock band to do that.
Nope.
Yeah. It was also the band's first big national hit, peaking at number 3 and launching surf rock into the mainstream. We did watch a couple of videos before we started up here, and yeah, they were one of the first bands that put words to the music, because you had the Ventures, you had Dick Dale, and his band. They were doing instrumental surf music. You know, the
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Like the Hawaii 5-0 kind of thing.
very much so, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, that was a hit on they released it as a song, for radio play when that show first hit the air.
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, I believe it was on the air until like 1979 or something like that. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, because basically once Hawaii 5-0 went off the air, CBS didn't necessarily want to leave because they had some studios set up and everything like that, and so they wanted to keep using that area. So they found another show to put on the air, Magnum PI.
Oh.
Yeah, more you know.
Mm-hmm.
But Surfing USA, this is a classic. Am I a fan of it? No. But I can see what its importance is in music history. Okay. It was one of the bits of trivia, but the Beach Boys were definitely one of those groups that took black music and did not give proper attribution.
Mm-hmm.
To their credit, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones had no problem doing that. I don't know of any examples of either of those groups taking a song, because I've even told you this story before. In the late 90s, Rolling Stones released a single called Has Anybody Seen My Baby? And it wasn't until the song was just about to be released that somebody thought, hey, this kind of sounds like Constant Craving from Katie Lang. And so what they did is they gave Katie Lang a songwriting credit, even though they were not. I'm not saying that they never heard that song, but they didn't say, let's do our own version of Constant Craving. I think it just came up and then somebody recognized it, and they did the right thing there. But there are times where musicians did not do that. Now, my understanding is, because I did do some additional research on this, thanks to Wikipedia, so we're not talking hours and hours of stuff here, but I think this was a situation to where once everything got sorted out in the courts and Chuck Berry kept on getting money until the day he died from it, I think once it was sorted in the courts, I think it was like, thank you made me a lot of money.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's what Dolly Parton says about Whitney Houston.
Yeah, and
there are people who think that that's Whitney Houston's song.
But in some ways it is. In the same sense that Hurt is Johnny Cash's now.
But no. Johnny Cash did the superior performance.
Based on your point of view, though.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
You're not going to go for Johnny Cash is inherently better than who?
Trent Reznor, Nine Inch Nails.
Trent Reznor and Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah. I'm not saying that. I'm just putting, okay, prosecutor.
Okay, I'll leave you alone.
But
inquiring minds want to know.
It's just important, I guess, to remember that. I'm sure there are still people that will listen to the Nine Inch Nails version and think that is the superior, but Trent Reznor, to his credit, says that is Johnny's song. Mm-hmm. So obviously he thinks Johnny Cash did the superior version of that song.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's at the end of the day, it is important to give proper attribution if you are lifting something essentially like they did.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty blatant. It reminds me of Paul Simon and the Graceland album.
How so?
Well, isn't that when Ladysmith Black Mambazo played with him?
Yeah, he gave them full credit, took them on tour.
I know, but he did not pay them very well, and they didn't get royalties. He paid them as performers, not as creators.
Wouldn't shock me. I've heard enough about Paul Simon that does not surprise me.
And then there's also the Weemaway song, the In the Jungle, The Lion Sleeps Tonight.
Yeah.
That song was lifted from an African performer, like just taken. And it was so long ago that the guy who originally came up with the song is long dead, and the dispute still going on between their families.
Yeah, it's like if you're creating something, just don't steal. Having said that, it still seems like the big name entertainment properties out there, though, do have a lot more vicious lawyers going after other people for quote unquote copyright infringement than there used to be back in the day. And I think that is kind of a scary thing for the arts going forward, because even if something falls out of copyright, like take Superman, for instance, once Superman goes into the public domain, they will still have some rights to that character up to some point. And I believe that if they make, I think what they're going to do is probably do what Disney did with Steamboat Willie and make it part of the logo, and make like the original Superman part of the logo, and then that falls under a trademark, I believe, right?
Right.
Too many companies have a lot of money, and they're making the future of the arts look much different than what it normally would have been in the past, because they're suing too much.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true all over. It's not just the arts.
Yeah.
I think in general, if they can make money, lawyers will do whatever it is they can make money at. So
yeah. What a great tribute to Brian Wilson. Let's go to the next song. This is one that I believe you added to the list here.
Oh, yeah. Caroline No.
Yes. Also from Pet Sounds.
Yes. Also from Pet Sounds. One that I was very surprised you left off. It's the last song on the album. It is the most melancholy, the most gentle. It's an interesting song. It's not exactly, I think the reason I like it is it's not really a Beach Boys sounding song. It's much more complex and interesting.
Yeah, because it was originally released as a Brian Wilson solo single, not credited to the Beach Boys.
Oh, wow.
So there you go. Because to kind of piggyback off the example you just gave, like Pete Townsend, the stuff that he writes for The Who sounds a lot different than the stuff he writes for himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because what's that song? The Limerence Zone or something?
Eminence
Front.
Eminence Front. I love that.
Front.
Eminence Front, one of my favorite Who songs, but came off of their album It's Hard in 1982, and that's what you want as a record buyer to see: guys in their 40s who are worn out and stressed out from life on the road and just look miserable. Yeah, here's my money, fuck you. Eminence Front, though, is probably the only track off that album worth anything, and it is a shame that of all the songs from The Who that sound like a TV show theme song, this was not used for one of the CSI shows. People wanted that song, to Eminence Front, to be used as a theme song to CSI New York.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but they ended up using Baba O'Reilly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, Baba O'Reilly, clearly better known of the two.
But I think Eminence Front sounds like something you would see, in like a police movie.
But people wouldn't even know who that was.
Yeah.
With Eminence Front. They would not think that was The Who.
I mean, for the casual person just discovering The Who thanks to CSI, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks for agreeing with me, so we don't have to go through one of those back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah, Clarence Darrow, and I'm your whipping boy. But the outro of the song features Brian Wilson's dogs barking and a passing train recorded in his backyard. And if you listen to Good Morning on Sgt. Pepper, they actually end with animal noises at the end of that song too, and that was an homage to Pet Sounds.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like the last part of Good Morning, you hear is a rooster do that, and then it goes into the outro to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but all because of Caroline No, and I believe too this is one of the songs that Brian Wilson himself sang.
Mm-hmm.
So it's his vocals on that song. Is there a reason why that it spoke to you?
I like ballads and slow music that has interesting lyrics. So I think it falls into the category of music I tend to like.
Gotcha. Well, good. Well, good. Well, how about I go into our next choice here?
Do it.
All right, one of their earlier hits, a hit that was inspired by the Ronettes' "Be My Baby," and Brian even offered it to them before recording it with the Beach Boys. "Don't Worry, Baby." You can kind of see how the Ronettes were definitely one of the inspirations for that song too. Yeah, it's a shame that they didn't even get a chance to record it. But I'm sure Brian, it was one of those situations where he was like, "Oh shit, I got something good here. Here, you can have this song." Brian Wilson considers this his best vocal performance with the band.
Nice.
Yeah, another one of their slower ones too. Early hits, so yeah, I'm not going to say that this is one I'm ever going to listen to on any sort of repeat. But, if I were making a film about life in the 60s and young people getting together in love, that's definitely one song you got to put up there. It is evocative of the time, could not be released today.
No.
Yeah. We got one more song to go. And we can thank LSD for this song.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. The lush intro was influenced by classical music, specifically Bach. Brian composed it while on LSD. And though Mike Love co-wrote the lyrics, he wasn't credited until a lawsuit decades later restored his authorship. And this is the song that you can thank David Lee Roth for introducing us to, California Girls.
Mm-hmm. Which Brian Wilson says is his favorite.
Yes.
Song.
I can kind of see why too, because a lot of times a musician will have that one song that just embodies them.
Mm.
For you, I think you would probably say with Dylan, it would be easy, like "Blowing in the Wind" or something like that.
No, I wouldn't say that at all, and I won't go into why, but
Okay.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay. Well, what was that? What was that song of his that you always bring up on the show? Hattie Carroll.
Oh, The Lonesome Death of Hattie Carroll.
Yeah, maybe that was.
Or Hurricane.
Hurricane, go.
Or, there's so many good ones.
Yeah. But back to California Girls here, it's great in its simplicity. It in one of those ways, I think it is a healthy showing of young heterosexual maleness. Enjoying women.
Really, do you think that you were so weird. Do you think that the David Lee Roth video for this song?
No, I'm talking about the original song.
But how could David Lee Roth take it and make it such a sexist piece of shit if there was not fodder there?
Because in the wrong hands, you can make chicken shit out of chicken salad,
Well, all I know is that I didn't like that video. I felt it was objectifying.
Well, David Lee Roth, yeah. I mean, come on, yeah. He's one of those guys in the Gene Simmons sphere of what he feels should be entitled to him as a rock star.
Brett Michaels.
Brett Michaels.
Yeah, similar.
Yeah, because Pam Anderson apparently made more than one sex tape. Another one that was made was with Brett Michaels. And word is, Brett Michaels is the one who released it to the public.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice job.
Nice guy, but I still like California Girls.
Yeah, I mean, Palm Tree in the Sand. I mean, it's not the worst.
It's not the worst, but, I'm sure there are far worse songs that have been made thanks to LSD,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think their Satanic Majesty's request for the Rolling Stones, answers that call.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Brian Wilson, we had a lot of goofy fun these past few minutes here talking about his work, but like I said at the start, he is an absolute legend of 20th century popular music, and he helped kick the door in for a lot of people, regardless of the music genre out there, and regardless of whether they even are aware of him as a human being. He gave them a lot of tools to create some great stuff.
That's right. And the thing that I liked the most about what we were watching of Brian Wilson was how happy he seemed later in life to be singing and performing. And I guess he was writing songs then too.
Yeah, he's released a number of solo songs, up to and including one from a few years back. Like I mentioned on the show before, too, he did have a stop here in Portland, I believe in 2017 or 2018. And I was like, nah, I'll see him when he comes back to town. That old joust my luck at it again.
Yeah, I mean, he should have taken that opportunity, probably.
Yeah, but I'm sure wrestling was on that night or something. But yeah, he will go down as a legend. Like, he's one of those people that the history books will continue to talk about. And I think the music in some ways will live on. Also, kind of, again, piggybacking off of your point, I am glad he was happy as well, because I do remember, I believe it was the late 80s or early 90s, but it was around the time when Wilson Phillips was first hitting it big, that there was a sit-down interview that they had with their dad. But this was still while he was still under the influence of that psychiatrist, and it was a weird interview.
Oh, uh-huh.
Yeah, because, like, he really wasn't saying much. I don't think the therapist was, like, on camera, but just, you could tell something was off.
That he wasn't speaking freely.
Yeah. So one of my early memories of Brian Wilson there. But having said that, to go from that memory to seeing an older gentleman just having the time of his life on stage at Live 8.
Yeah.
I mean, what better way to, cap off one hell of a great career and one hell of a important life in 20th century popular culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So if you go to the link in our show profile, people, you will be able to check out the music from this playlist. But if you don't check out the playlist, you can also just pop on a Beach Boys Greatest Hits album. You can pop on, Pet Sounds, do whatever. Just take some time to give a tip of the hat to the legend, Brian Wilson.
That's right.
All right.
Lying in bed, just like Brian Wilson did.
All right.
You know that song?
No.
Oh, it's a Bare Naked Ladies song.
That's why I don't know it.
Yeah. The chorus of it was lying in bed, just like Brian Wilson did.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, he's an icon.
Yeah. Do you want to know why I know about the Bare Naked Ladies?
Why?
I didn't know that they were a band that existed until the first time I had a chance to get it on the internet in like 95, 96.
Uh-huh.
And one of the first things I look up, Bare Naked Ladies, but I wasn't looking for the band.
I love that you called it Bare Naked.
Bare Naked.
Like, not just naked.
Yeah.
Bare Naked.
I want it bare, yeah. Yeah, you're making me sound like from the episode of The Simpsons I just saw, where thanks to Professor Frank, Bart, and Lisa got to see their future, but they also could see the future of other things too, and one of them was Vice President Cletus.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, and then they ended the show with Cletus on the phone talking to somebody in Brunei, and he gets off the phone and, "Hey, Brandine, get my special britches. We're going to Brunei."
Get my special britches.
Anyway, making me sound like that. Well, I'm going to get my special britches and tell you folks, each Monday we'll have something in this podcast space to entertain your ear holes. Until we meet again, we bid you adieu.
So long.
Good vibrations.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy
on YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify,
or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Goodbye, darling.